Everything that kept us safe is gone.
Why aren't you scared of me?
There's no civilization here, not until we start one.
When we all fall asleep, where do we go?
Just putting these ideas in their heads. Now they made her queen.
Careful.
Dude, I don't even know what this is. What are we looking at? Start the show.
Welcome to Cordkillers, the show about watching the stuff you love, when you want, where you want, however you want. I'm Tom Merritt.
Hey, I'm Brian Brushwood, and more importantly, it occurs to me that the part of my confusion just then was I was imagining what that audio soundbite sounded like to somebody who was audio only, and I would be picturing like some kind of sci-fi hellscape or post-apocalyptia or something, but instead we're seeing clearly a very nice college campus, and it makes me, Bryce, tell me about what this story is.
This is Netflix's new series, The Society. It's coming out May 10th. It's about a town in New England. It's not even a college town. I don't believe it's a town in New England where all the kids find themselves in a ghostly, like, empty version of the town with no adults. It actually sounds a lot like the Canadian series that Netflix bought a few years ago. I don't remember the name of it now, but it had the girl from iCarly in it. That's what I remember. But it looks like there's like a lot of drama and power sort of play while these teenagers try to find a way out. Also, they can't escape. Like all the roads, there's a shot in the trailer where like a road just like stops. It was pretty neat. That's The Society.
Yeah, I'm glad you explained that, because you're right, Brian. On audio, you just heard a hit song from today's hits playlist.
You just heard a Billie Eilish song.
Yeah. Like, why are they starting this show with Billie Eilish? I don't get it. We should also bring in our guest today, Anthony Lemos, a.k.a. Amos. Welcome back to the show, Anthony.
Yes. Thank you for having me back. This is it's an important week in my life.
We could get away with calling him Anthony the Ant-Man. What's up, Ant-Man?
In fact, that leads right into our primary target.
Ooh, good segue.
For those of you still avoiding spoilers for Avengers Endgame, I encourage you to hurry to your theater. But also, we are not going to spoil Avengers Endgame on this show. We will very much spoil it on the show we called Spoiler in Time, which is why we call that show Spoiler in Time. But we do want to talk about the fact that Avengers Endgame has broken nearly every box office record, and that's not even an exaggeration. Biggest worldwide opening. Fastest to reach $1 billion worldwide, top North American opening, top daily totals, top China opening, biggest international debut, highest opening weekend in 44 markets worldwide, biggest domestic weekend total, top market share, IMAX record, biggest 3D sale, and widest North American release, opening in 4,662 theaters in North America, beating the previous record holder, Despicable Me 3.
Dude, everything that you just said sounded epic until the words Despicable Me 3.
I know. I had to say that though, because I'm like, Despicable Me 3 opened in 4,529 locations. That's insane. But yeah, it is a moment in theater history, no matter what you think of this movie. This is a huge movie. I actually took a little video at the airport on Thursday when I was headed out to Las Vegas of the Avengers Endgame advertisements. Like, you'll be able to use these for period pieces. Like period TV shows and movies will show Avengers Endgame posters like they show Star Wars posters now to let you know, oh, it's 1977. Those posters, oh, it's 2019. Look, it's the Endgame poster. What fascinates me about this is the fact that we are looking at the biggest movie ever as the 22nd movie in a franchise. This is not Star Wars, the first movie in a franchise. This is not even Star Wars, the 9th movie in a franchise. This is the 22nd movie in a franchise. And I don't know about y'all, but I think that's fascinating, because if you would have told anyone in 2008 that this is where Marvel would go with their extended universe, I don't think anyone would have thought you were probably going to be right.
Okay, so here's how that imaginary conversation might have gone. You would say, hey, you're worried about Marvel being bought by Disney. Good news, they're going to start making Marvel movies, and they'll be so successful, there'll be 22 of them. And then you will say, maybe, younger you would say like, oh, well, that's good to hear because I like Marvel, but, are they going to get better? It's not unprecedented because we've seen that.
Spider-Man's pretty cool. X-Men's all right. Fantastic Four, not as great.
But specifically, you would point to the previous precedent of the James Bond franchise that had hit its 18th, 19th, 20th movie or whatever.
Sure.
But then you would say, no, let me blow your mind. Unlike the James Bond franchise, which will do a few movies and then refresh, sort of reboot the ideas, maybe shift focus, update the character, they will not do this. Instead, they will tell a single, sprawling, branching narrative that spans 11 years and culminates with an ending that could not exist on its own without everything that came before it. And that
must take 22, 23 years, right? I mean, to tell that, because you can't have multiples of those coming out every year. Nobody will go to see that many movies.
No, it happens very fast. It turns out Disney
at least 3 to 4 movies per year.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's the part that and what's amazing is that we now have, I remember at the very first year that we did live streaming, back when it was Justin TV, before it was even Twitch, we did the BB Live show, and it was news that we talked about that Disney was buying Marvel. And I remember expressing skepticism about the whole thing. And within 2 years, 2 or 3 years, we had the first Iron Man movie, and I was like, you know what? They're good stewards of properties that they acquire. But to see them go this far is really extraordinary. And of course, when you think of it in that context, it's not crazy that it broke all of the records.
Well, here's the thing, though. Looking at it from the big top down, did Disney do a good job? It's pretty obvious. Yes, they did a good job. But how they did a good job is what fascinates me more, because we tend to want to personify companies and like Mr. Disney, not even Walt, but Mr. Disney Corporation man bought Marvel and then told the Marvel man what to do, and then the Marvel man went out and did it. That's not how it works at all, right? It's way more complex. We're talking about thousands of people interacting, and that's where I want to focus on Kevin Feige more than anything, because this is the person who was a single person who said, I will now corral all of you actors and directors and my executives above me telling me what's possible and what isn't and how much money I can spend on it to tell this sprawling story in a way that early on, I'm going to lose a couple actors. I'm going to lose my Hulk after the first movie. I'm going to lose my War Machine after the first Iron Man, but I'm going to hold it together and keep it consistent so that everybody enjoys the movies. They don't get bored, and they are so invested in a movie I'll call Endgame at the end that I will break every movie record. I mean, it's just crazy.
Yeah. So, okay, as somebody who, there was a fairly startling confession just before the show started. Amos, you're about caught up, right? You're just a little bit behind when it comes to Endgame?
Just a dozen or so movies behind.
A dozen?
You not only haven't seen Endgame, you haven't seen most of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Right. Brian had asked me before. I've seen the first Iron Man, was it Defenders of the Galaxy, and Black Panther. Those are the ones that I know that I've seen.
So does it feel to you like there's an amazing gift waiting for you, or is it just like, it's a thing? It seems like a bunch of nerd crap, if you ask me.
No, so now that I know that, the first tier, it's because there's supposed to be like multiple tiers of what Disney's doing with it. This first tier is done. Now I feel more comfortable going in and not having this anxiety of waiting another year or so before the story gets pushed forward or anything else. It seems like a complete collection to me. And now for me personally, I'm more likely to go in and start watching them and get caught up. But to be not a huge Marvel fan or not a huge comic book fan to start off with, and then have all these movies coming out so regularly, it was kind of daunting for me just because it's not necessarily my shtick. But now that the story is completed, I don't have to wait for all these other movies to come out to finally see what's going to happen, because I don't know enough about the Marvel universe to kind of guess and have it play to my expectations.
But this is the third time that's happened. Like, Avengers ended phase 1. That was, I mean, technically, I think the movie after did, but Avengers was the culmination of the first phase. Then they started some news stories, and that was Avengers: Age of Ultron, which technically ended with Ant-Man. And then this is the third time they've done that, and the previous times didn't feel as definitive, I guess. And that is something to explore, Brian, is why this feels so much like a particular line in the sand more so than the previous phases, because it really does.
Yeah, so here's what'll be really interesting is whether that completeness, because just like Ant-Man was technically the end of phase one, technically the end of phase 3 is going to be the new Spider-Man movie. So from a box office perspective, I'm really curious to see whether or not that goodwill continues to wash forward, or if Endgame was complete enough that there's just not a lot of hype left to carry forward.
Well, here's the other thing that Amos just said that I find interesting as well, and I think it is part of the power behind why Endgame is so big. And I hadn't thought about it till you said it, Amos. You can go back and watch all these movies. Now, granted, as early as the 1980s, you could go rent movies and watch them on your VCR, and we could rent DVDs. But it is easier now more than ever to go and do this. And in fact, in November, it's going to get even easier when for $7 a month, you can subscribe to a service that will have at the beginning most of these movies and eventually all of these movies. So if you're like, I just want to go back and experience this universe, you can. And I think that's one of the reasons Endgame was so big is I know multiple people. One of Eileen's coworkers went through and are like, I'm going to rewatch all the ones I haven't watched. Well, I guess it's not a rewatch. I'm going to watch all the ones I haven't watched and then go see Endgame. And that's something that is easier to do now than ever before.
And I think that plays into why it was such a big opening, because you do have people that missed them and didn't get to catch them on the first time around. They want to be part of the closing event of Endgame. And you can do all those rewatches or, go back and catch the entire back catalog and finally be caught up in time to go enjoy this spectacle with everyone. And there's not another spectacle right after it, because this is the end of at least some of the storylines, a good number of storylines, which I'm sure we'll discuss in spoiling time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's called End Game, so I think you can get it from the title. That's going to mean the end of some storyline.
I thought it was Avengers End Game.
Endgame. I thought it was just some Spanish word I didn't know. I still don't have an answer to this, and I keep saying to people, I want to hear a Kevin Feige interview where he explains what he planned at the beginning, what he adapted along the way, and what he thinks is the success of this. Because nothing has ever been done like this to this degree of success, right? James Bond, you mentioned earlier, is kind of the closest. And James Bond pulls a little bit of a Doctor Who trick of like, we'll just keep changing James Bonds and then we'll just abandon the early story. This was trying not to change any actors, and trying to keep every movie consistent with what happened in the previous movies without getting them tied in knots to where they couldn't tell a story anymore.
Yeah. Good news. Turns out he had a document sent down from heaven to work from called The Comic Books, who had already faced all of these problems and done sometimes in a good way, sometimes in a bad way.
Well, you think that explains it, is that he's working basically a second draft of what Marvel the comic universe has already done, and saying, well, I can actually take this and put it here and do this and put it there.
100%. Like every few years in the comics, there would be some kind of sprawling narrative that would cross across comic books. For me, it goes back to the original Secret Wars with which while most people looked at it like a shameless cash grab to sell toys, I looked at it as the most awesome story ever. Basically, a sentient other universe grabs all of your favorite heroes and villains, throws them on a planet, and says, whoever wins gets 10% of my galaxy powers, and everybody goes to war immediately. Dead simple, right? So as a standalone thing, each comic book had its own, thread of what it dealt with. Then they tried to Secret Wars 2. They didn't have its own title. Instead, they made it all just a crossover thing. So you basically followed the adventures of this conscious universe with infinite power as it tried to learn what it meant to be human. I can't believe I'm about to do a spoiler warning for a 30-year-old storyline, but a 40-year-old story. storyline. But the only way to read it was to look for every comic book that had a little tag in the corner that says Secret Wars 2. You're like, oh, this is going to be another piece of that story. It was sort of the Arrested Development on Netflix of its time, and you could read them in any order you want. But some of these adventures did well. Some of them did not. Some of them were carefully crafted. Others were very, very sloppy. But if you're a genuine fanboy through that entire experience, I would imagine that it's fairly easy to figure out what to prune and say, tighten this up, don't make this, take this storyline, change these characters. Yeah, that fits a movie.
You say it's easy, but this is an incredibly sprawling universe, and I think it's easy to get wrong too. It's easy to miss the thing that should have been pruned, or to fall in love with the thing that you loved as a fanboy that you don't want to get rid of, even though you kind of know maybe it should get rid of. And on top of that, make it appealing to everyone. And the majority of people who are seeing Marvel movies didn't read the comics.
Correct.
I mean, I don't have evidence of that, but I'm going to guess that that's probably true. It's certainly a large chunk of them.
Well, and part of it, I had never heard the phrase 4-quadrant storytelling until the MCU. 4 quadrants being young, old, male, female. You know, you want something that has something for everybody here. So it's weird to think of storytelling as technology, but in terms of storytelling technologies, and as we increasingly come to understand the human psyche and what it is that creates this nuclear flash of adrenaline at various moments as we watch these archetypal monomythic stories, I don't know. I think we're almost getting to the age of weaponized storytelling.
Yeah, and then it's so much easier to tell a story to an audience when you know they can access all the rest of your story so easily. I think that's another element of it as well. You can say, I'm going to design a story that appeals to all these people. And there's always what's not in the 4 quadrants is I don't understand what's going on, right? Because I think when you're doing 22 movies at some point, especially in Avengers Endgame, right? The one that just set all the records is the hardest one to understand if you haven't seen the previous movies, because you don't know who any of these people are or why they're doing any of their things.
What a fascinating experience. Amos, is there a chance that we could get you, only having seen like 4 of the movies, to just go straight into Endgame and give us boots on the ground reporting for what that experience is like for you? Now, on the one hand, you'll be quote unquote ruining the experience because you won't do it exactly the way everyone else has before you. But on the other hand, you'll be a pioneer because you'll be able to explain what this is like if you don't do it in the right order.
I think I can make that happen.
Okay.
I think I can.
I'm so in. Okay. That sounds awesome.
And before we switch off, I want to bring something up from what Tom said. There is an element of non-confusion that I can enjoy now because I don't have to listen to everybody talk about all the things that were wrong with the movies and where it should go from here and all this extra FUD around the MCU. Now that it's at this point, I can go through and just enjoy the MCU.
Yeah. You don't have
without
to,
the tertiary crap.
Yeah. You don't have to play the speculation game of constantly wondering like, oh, I wonder what they're setting up here or whatever. Like,
Right.
Yeah. What side are you on? Do you like Guardians 2 or not? Are you my friend or not? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, to me, this can now be the Marvel universe. It doesn't have to be the Marvel cinematic versus comic book universe delineations or anything else. This can be my story. And for anybody that wasn't really into comic books younger or even older, I guess, this is now the set standard. There's a huge story with all kinds of lore, dozens of characters, but now this is the story we can know, and we don't have to know all the extra stuff going on and where things went wrong or whatever else. We just know this is the end story. This is the whole thing.
Very bravely in the chat, Open Bayou just said, I've never seen a Marvel movie and am willing to go fully into watching all of the Marvel movies. What if you did something very bold, which is watch all of them backwards? Like exactly chronologically backwards. And I would love more than anything to know what it's like for somebody to experience Iron Man as the 22nd Marvel Cinematic Universe movie. That would be amazing.
It's just all prequels. You start with Endgame. You're like, but how did we get here?
Oh, that would be amazing.
Find out next time in Infinity War.
It's Marvel Clue.
Yeah, that would be amazing. And we will pay for those movie tickets if we get 10 more patrons at patreon.com/Cordkillers.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know this, but we run a little bit of a charity where every so often we find somebody who wants to see a movie and we dedicate some of your funds to letting them see a movie. It's you get to feel good. You get to make the world a brighter place. All you have to do is head on over to patreon.com/Cordkillers. Now, full disclosure, very oftentimes the people who see those movies are us, but occasionally we're able to we'd like to reach even more people to let them see movies. Bryce, you recently got to see Captain Marvel on the dime of all of our bosses.
Yeah, that's, I guess, yeah, yes.
Other people, I'm sure my children are seeing movies.
Yeah,
on your
staples
time.
of the Cordkillers podcast, your children.
Man, I'm trying real hard to run with this through line.
All of the movies I see. But no, seriously, we will pay for Amos's ticket and Open Bayou's if we get 10 more patrons at patreon.com/Cordkillers.
Yeah.
To see Avengers Endgame, not all their movie tickets.
Yeah, we're not opening up the next movie pass here.
We're not
not that
replacing
dumb.
Anemia. More on that later.
No. What if the local theater decides to run all of them in reverse order for Open Bayou in the theater?
If that happens,
we'll cover.
Yeah.
Possibilities are endless.
He's got
I feel
Netflix. He can watch
confident
the rest of
in doing that. Open Bio is like, Bryce is sending an invoice right now. All right, let's move on and talk about how to watch. So, Viacom had their new front, I guess it's where they talk about all their digital stuff, and announced that starting May 1st, programming from Viacom channels will show up on Pluto TV. Of course, we told you Viacom bought Pluto TV not too long ago. This is not a big shocker. They're going to have some flagship channels that will have curated versions, not the same version you get on cable, but curated versions of BET, Comedy Central, MTV, Nickelodeon, Nick Jr., and Spike. So these will be shows from those in the Pluto TV interface, but probably not all the live events, probably not the shows at the same time they premiere, is my guess. They're also adding some signature channels. This is something that Pluto TV does well, and now they'll be able to do more of it, like CMT Westerns, Comedy Central stand-up, MTV dating shows, MTV Guy Code, MTV Teen, Paramount Movie Channel. Well, they'll just run movies from the Paramount Movie Channel, and Spike Outdoors. And then they'll have a pop-up channel which will feature marathons. Again, Pluto does this already, but they'll be able to do it with Viacom stuff now. And ahead of the return of The Hills New Beginnings coming June 24th, they're going to have a pop-up channel of The Hills where they'll just be constantly playing episodes of The Hills. Now, they've also got some original content coming out, not to Viacom stuff, but it's made by Viacom. So Awesomeness, teen thriller Light as a Feather Season 2 premieres on Hulu July 26th. And MTV's Wild and Out will launch a Twitch live streaming channel this summer that will feature the show's personalities playing video games. And speaking of Pluto TV, CNN is going to bring a curated channel of their clips to Pluto TV on April 30th. Also, starting May 1st, Viacom's going to launch Paramount Plus outside of Europe. Paramount Plus has been a movie channel, a digital streaming movie channel that offered 150 movies and 2,000 TV shows. So I guess not just movie channel, but like a Netflix style thing with Viacom content. They even have The Handmaid's Tale, since they make The Handmaid's Tale, on Paramount Plus in Europe, and that will be expanding to Latin America. David Lin, president and CEO of Viacom International Media Network, said, by forging partnerships with the world's leading operators and distributors, we are able to bring Viacom's premium content to new global audiences. And finally, slightly related to Viacom, CBS has called off its search for a replacement for the now departed CEO Les Moonves. They've extended interim CEO Joe Iannello for 6 months, boosting speculation that maybe, finally, after years of talk, we might see a merger happen between Viacom and CBS.
So I don't really have a dog in the fight on the CBS Viacom thing, but I am really fascinated by this Viacom Pluto situation, partly because I'm going to make a bold statement and then we could feel it out and you could tell me if there's anything to it. Could this be the beginning of the death of live TV? By which I mean, as you read all of these elements to the story, it occurs to me that everything you described sounds very Pluto. What is Pluto? It's the thing you open and you see what's currently running and you say, show me that. It also is extraordinarily uncable in that we described a bunch of channels that were changing the programming, doing selected stuff, but preserving the flavor of it. So no, it's not the same Comedy Central that theoretically the rest of the world is watching, but it is a Comedy Central in the same way that this is a Kit Kat bar, not the same Kit Kat bar that the whole world is doing. If this works, what it is it tells me two things. That what people really like out of live TV, let's say sport programming notwithstanding, or major news events notwithstanding, is what they like is waterfall television. They're like, I want to press the button that causes Kit Kats to fly out of the wall, and that it is possible to define a network not by their actual programming of what they put out at any time, but instead by the flavor of the programming. Like if I say Hallmark Movie Channel, there's a very particular flavor of content that you're immediately thinking of. If they can nail this, then I could totally see Pluto doing weird stuff where different users get different mixes of stuff, and then they track watching characteristics to begin to weaponize their content. This could be down the road one of the biggest natural experiments in the history since cable television.
Well, I mean, welcome to Pluto, right? That's been what they do for years now, and they haven't caught on.
But
so what I'm hearing you say is, but now they have better content. Now they have Comedy Central. Now they have CMT. Now they have some Paramount movies. They can boost the quality level of this.
Correct.
Will that bring people in the door? Because, hey, I do like that MTV dating show. Oh, look, a whole channel of MTV dating shows.
That's the question, is maybe they've had the right idea, but they haven't had the quality of product that they needed in order to make it land. Because if it lands...
The reason I want to quibble with that is they had a partnership with Hulu for a long time, and they had pretty high quality product when they had that Hulu partnership, and they were breaking Hulu content down by comedy genres and sci-fi genres and stuff like that. None of what they're doing here is particularly new. It's just with Viacom stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the brand names that for the individual channels that Viacom have, maybe, and all of this is almost certainly colored by the fact that I grew up in the heyday of cable television. So as a result, I have 20, 30, 40 years of programming of what, Comedy Central means and all of that stuff. So I don't know, though. It has me, let me put it this way. Until I read this, I like what they're trying to do with Pluto. Me personally, I would never, ever, ever turn it on. For the first time, I'm thinking, yeah, maybe I'll turn it on.
Amos, does it strike you that way?
It seems to me that they're doing focused channels, like Brian was saying. I don't really need a waterfall of TV, but there are times when I just want, hey, this topic, I want a lot of this subject on me or whatever. And I'm not a person that watches live TV ever. Between my Plex and my HD home run, I never watch anything live. And to have options like this, like some of these actually sound really interesting. The Comedy Central stand-up channel, yes. Where do I sign up for that? I'm used to scouring YouTube for stand-up clips and things like that to really get that kick, So maybe it's the variety of what they're doing versus necessarily the quality, or that they can focus a little bit better because they have Viacom on board with it. Either way, this is something that sounds interesting to me, although being the cynic I am, I want to see it in action first, but it at least has my interest peaked.
Yeah, I have a feeling that people out there, and I know there's a few of them who use Pluto TV, are tearing their hair out right now because they're saying, look, you guys, everything you're saying you like about this announcement has already existed on Pluto. And there's like a whole MST3K channel, and there's a TV sitcoms channel, and there's an Onion channel, and they have lots of high quality stuff on there. You just never used it. So I'm trying to represent that point of view.
Alternate analogy, everything you're describing that's great about Avengers Endgame has already existed before with, insert lesser heroes and properties.
Not, though, because we're not saying finally I don't think you're saying Viacom is the Avengers Endgame to Funny or Die, like to Funny or Die is something else. Like I don't know. It's it's to me, it's like, well, okay, now they're going to have a fleshing out of the content. And here's where I'm coming from. I haven't had a chance to actually give my perspective on this. I saw this headline and thought, wow, great move, Viacom. Put your channels on Pluto as ad-supported kind of over-the-air channels to get people to Pluto. That's amazing. And then I realized, oh, no, that's not what they're doing. They're not putting their channels on Pluto. They're putting a version of their channels with their content. And yes, they have these signature channels that are Westerns or stand-up, but they also have just a Comedy Central channel that's just going to be the Comedy Central shows. What it doesn't bring is the only reason I ever miss Viacom channels, which is, oh, there's a live event. My wife wants to watch the MTV Music Awards. Oh, wait, MTV isn't any on the streaming services we have. We can't watch it. So forget it. Whereas if it was on Pluto, boom, we're over at Pluto TV, and then suddenly we might get sucked into all of these other channels that they have.
Yeah, I guess what I'm, because I agree, like that is the most significant part, is that it's not Comedy Central, but it is Comedy Central flavored. And if think about what a transformative weird thing it was to realize, like, oh wait, Diet Coke doesn't have to be just Diet Coke. We could have Diet Coke lime, lemon, blah blah blah, all these different variations on it, because they figured out that Diet Coke is a brand and a flavor. This isn't a perfect analogy, but my point is, if this succeeds, what it means, what it unlocks, is a complete uncoupling of the idea that no, we run a channel with a slate of content. Then all of a sudden it's like, no, we are a flavor that satisfies an expectation in all of our audience members. And yes, there has been Pluto and they've been playing in these waters, but we've never seen this kind of remixing, this level of remixing in traditional cable television channels. Right. There has been this level of remixing on Pluto, though, but especially in news. Yes, we all heard you the first 3 times. I'm saying nobody's remixed the standard, 30, 40, however many greatest cable channels before. Nobody's played that game yet, and that's what I'm very interested to see if it pays off.
Well, it's certainly going to be interesting to watch that as well. And getting back to the CBS thing, I think the way that it might impact your day-to-day life is if CBS and Viacom do merge, and suddenly all of this Viacom content can show up on CBS All Access. All of the CBS originals can now show up on Pluto. And you could start to cross those streams and create bigger packages. A lot of people think that as a business move, they have to do that if they want to compete with the Disneys and Netflixes and Amazons of the world.
Yeah, I got to be honest. If for no other reason than just because they're so very, very late to the game, I think that's the only play they have, right?
A lot of people think that. Yeah. And yet CBS sued to stop National Amusements, which is the majority owner of both of them, from starting this process themselves when Les Moonves was CEO. So now it has to be the 2 companies themselves have to go and do it. And it sounds like the 2 companies themselves are like, yeah, we probably really need to do that. So let's talk about whether we can make that happen or not, because I honestly think the other out for those 2 companies would be to end up being acquired by one of these other bigger companies. All right, let's talk about what to watch now in Under Surveillance.
Not like real estate. It's all about location. Under Surveillance.
The Hulu adaptation of the novel Catch-22, produced and starring George Clooney, arrives May 17th.
I know. Fun fact: I never read Catch-22, and so now I have to decide if I want to read the book or see the show.
Which is not a Catch-22.
Okay. Oh, is this a pedantic clarification?
No. I was tempted to make a joke, which is kind of a Catch-22, and then I realized, no,
it's just a choice.
It's just a choice.
It's just 2 perfectly legitimate options laid before me.
It's not even really a Hobson's choice. It's just like, hey, whatever you want.
Not even a Sophie's choice.
Yeah.
Now, Brian, you'll have to watch the show so I can read the book, or vice versa. Then we can talk about that.
Oh, there we go. I like it.
Now we're talking.
Because I'm in the same boat. I've always wanted to, but never taken the opportunity to read the book. So,
Netflix has renewed its baking competition series, Nailed It, for a 3rd season. Woo! I believe Felicia Day is on this on the show.
Oh yeah, good on them.
It premieres on May 17th.
Very cool.
Bryce, are you in?
I'm in. Though I didn't. They also put out Nailed It Mexico, I believe, sometime since the last season. I haven't had a chance to check that out, but it also sounds like they're going to make a lot more international versions of Nailed It. So that's.
I would love to see like a congressional version of Nailed It, where it's explained to them how to properly legislate, and they go in and they write it and they're like, nailed it.
Netflix is launching the Arthdal Chronicles on June 1st about mythical heroes in a land called Arth. This is in partnership with Korea's TVN and Studio Dragon.
Very cool.
Yeah, it looks like a pretty, like, if you're into the like ancient fantasy and you want a different spin, I think this will be good. Fox has given the green light to a half-hour comedy called What Just Happened, hosted by Fred Savage, premiering June 30th. This is basically an after show for a show that doesn't exist. So it will be about a fake sci-fi series called The Flare, based on a fictional book called The Moon is the Sun at Night by a fictional author, T.J. Whitford. And they will have celebrities on and members of the cast and behind-the-scenes video of the TV show The Flare, even though there is no TV show called The Flare.
This just in breaking news, lawsuit filed by the producers of FSL, a podcast series that gives after the game explanations of what happened during a mysterious fantasy sports league.
I will. I cannot comment on that, Brian. I cannot comment on any ongoing litigation. Ong Lee's Gemini Man trailer is out, showing Will Smith taking on a younger, should I say fresher, Will Smith. That movie arrives October 11th.
I did not see the trailer to this. Everyone, I missed the trailers both times.
You had to watch this one. This is the one you had to watch, because the whole point is you see the de-aged Will Smith who looks just like the Fresh Prince era Will Smith.
Oh, dude. I am excited to see it. I'm sure it'll be great. I've heard that there's quite a tale of the whole, how this came to be written. But I don't know anything about any of that.
This trailer gives away a lot of this movie. I think I would imagine.
It does. I couldn't decide if Brian was making a Fresh Prince of Bel-Air reference when he said there's a story he has to tell.
No.
Two Will Smiths that you know so well.
First of all, that's Paul Revere by the Beastie Boys, but that's fine. Now, if I was going to make that joke, I'd be like, okay, here's the situation. I'm watching Gemini trailers. All right.
Nickelodeon greenlit a Star Trek animated series from Emmy-winning writers Kevin and Dan Hageman, who have previously done Troll Hunters and Ninjago. Follows a group of lawless teens who discover a derelict Starfleet ship and use it to search for adventure, as well as meaning and salvation, apparently.
Do you think, how do you feel about the animated part of this whole story? Because I liked it better. I found myself thinking like I'm excited in spite of the fact that it's animated Star Trek.
Animated doesn't bother me on the surface. It will be about the style of animation, whether this bugs me, because Clone Wars and Rebels both, I'm like, they're great. Love them. I just sort of forgot they were animated after a while. Star Wars Resistance, don't love as much. So bothers me that it's animated, whereas it wasn't animated. Maybe that would save the story that I don't love as much. But yeah, Amos, what about you?
I'm excited anytime there's a new project, especially in the animated world, because there's just so much that can be done with it. And depending on the audience, I mean, this is Nickelodeon, so hopefully it's a younger audience. This might be exactly what it takes to get some of my younger kids into the Star Trek universe that I enjoy as much as I do.
Is this the first Star Trek franchise aimed at kids? I mean, my understanding is the rest of them are probably family.
I never want to say first or only in Star Trek land.
I think fairly
for fear of 300 Star Trek fans telling me why I'm technically wrong, but I don't think so.
No, I would say that the Star Trek animated. The Star Trek animated series was all I know is it definitely showed up Saturday mornings with Saturday morning cartoons.
Okay, so they've done kids
so that was kind of
cartoons before.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
That was both animated and at least placed at a time.
Those were just regular episodes of Star Trek that they were like, well, we had these scripts ready. If there was another season, let's make them animated.
Correct.
So that's why
correct.
It's kind of hard to tell.
That's clever.
This will be designed for Nickelodeon from the beginning. And CBS All Access has renewed The Twilight Zone for a second season.
Wow. Again, that almost none of that surprises me anymore. Like CBS is clearly making a very, very big bet on all of their all access stuff. And it increasingly is creating a very attractive ecosystem to hop into.
Couple of casting announcements. Rami Malek, you might know him from Mr. Robot, or Bohemian Rhapsody, will play the villain in the next Bond film, which is also Daniel Craig's last as the James Bond. That's coming next April, a year from now.
Cool.
And Joss Whedon's HBO series The Nevers has cast Laura Donnelly as a sci-fi person in an epic about a gang of Victorian women who find themselves with unusual abilities.
All in on this. That's one of the, like, our white rabbit on the Modern Rogue is to do an episode on Bartitsu. You know, basically, what was that show? The bunch of gentlemen doing kung fu stuff. Basically, Bartitsu is a martial art that involves, like, you know, using your umbrella. It was developed in Victorian England.
Nice.
If it's that flavor, that'll be a lot of fun.
And finally, Netflix is canceling Santa Clarita Diet. So third season is its last season. Hilariously, Raylan, co-star Timothy Oliphant, said, "I love working on this show. I'm going to continue coming in and doing scenes. If they don't want to film it, that's up to them." That was his official response.
That all sounds like a bit of a dog whistle of, like, hey, here's how it works, America. If you love a thing and you're not going to get any more of it, you could do something called make a lot of noise that causes somebody besides Netflix to be interested in letting us continue to make it.
Yeah, maybe. Although his co-star just said the normal, like, "Oh, I'm going to miss working on the show. It was so nice, blah, 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 blah." So I don't know. Maybe it was just Timothy Oliphant being silly. But it does bring up the fact that Netflix has been canceling a lot of shows after their third season, one day at a time. Most recent example I could think of. Deadline says this is because Netflix employs a cost-plus model, offering to pay upfront for a show's production costs, plus a premium of 30% or more of the costs. The pact that they make with these shows includes bumps and bonuses after each season that get progressively bigger. They escalate after season 3, especially for series that are owned by Netflix, sometimes going from hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars as the studio starts to pay off the show's back end. So if Netflix is looking at season 4 and it's not hitting everyone to come to Netflix, I think their math starts to sputter out of, like, okay, it's great for it to hit a niche. It'll be worth it. Season 4 better be massively popular for it to be worth the big cost bump. Yeah.
And if I'm Netflix, I'm picturing that this model kind of gives them the best of both worlds. If it, let's say if it only does well enough that you hit 3 seasons and the numbers aren't super great, congratulations, you did the right thing. Now you get to check that box for that very specific targeted niche to encourage people into your ecosystem. If it turns out to be a lottery, a winning lottery ticket, then congratulations, you shut the hell up and you continue to run with it as long as you can on there. I mean, all of that seems a hell of a lot better than the wild gambles people take with just one pilot that they would run on primetime in the fall.
I think this makes sense too, because remember, Netflix's goal isn't to make 7 seasons of your favorite show.
Right.
Netflix's goal is to get subscribers. And if 3 seasons of One Day at a Time, 3 seasons of Santa Clarita Diet exist and can bring in subscribers, because there's the person that's like, oh, that show finally finished. Yeah, I never got around to watching it. You know what? I think I will. That works. And like you say, if they hit the lottery and can come back and give 7 seasons of a show because it just kills, then, you know, more's the better for Netflix. But all they care about is having the massive library of stuff back there. And to be honest, most TV series don't run 3 seasons, much less 7.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it really comes into, if you kind of have to have a really solid story in order to go past the third season with, you know, value. Anyway, you see some shows that are going on for like 7 seasons, but the last 3 are just crap because they ran out of ideas or whatever. So 3 seasons seems to be kind of like a nice little button to put shows in. Hey, tell a story, 3 seasons. If it's awesome, we'll continue it on a little bit longer. But if not, then you've got a story. You've got a concrete story, start to finish. Here you go.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about what we've had our eyes on. Frankly, my eyes have been on pretty much the same thing as everybody else. But Amos, we'll start with you.
Game of Thrones. Holy crap, so much Game of Thrones. And I finally started watching The Wire.
How far in are you?
I've just finished the first season. I think I'm 2 or 3 episodes into the second season, and it is phenomenal.
Oh my gosh. If you already find it phenomenal just at the beginning of the second season, buckle up, buddy. It gets epic and sprawling.
Well, I was thinking before I came on, Brian's going to say something about how much better it's going to be, and I'm going to have to justify why I like it as much as I do now. And this isn't a show that I enjoy watching. It's a show that I feel like I'm experiencing as I watch it. It's not I'm not like, oh, I got to watch another episode. It's like once I put the episode on, it's like nothing else in life can happen because I have to know what's going on right now in this show.
That's fair enough. It's what was it? I forget who the quote is from. Like, do you enjoy writing? And she said, I enjoy having written. like I'm very thankful that I have watched The Wire.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. I'm really enjoying it. And of course, Game of Thrones for the podcast and for life in general, and because it's amazing. So
yeah, season 2 is, I believe, the least liked because it explores, each season.
Of The Wire.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Each season explores a different topic, and the topic just didn't resonate with everybody necessarily on season 2. So if you're already enjoying it, I liked it. It was one of my favorites.
I mean, all three of us are going to say Game of Thrones. I'm going to say Avengers Endgame. To be honest, I can't think of anything else that I watched with much attention this past week. Brian, what about you?
I've got a pick for you, my friends. I finally watched the first episode of What We Do in the Shadows. It's so good.
The TV series?
The TV series, What We Do in the Shadows, based on the same property. But there was this great exchange where somebody asked Taika Waititi, creator and director of the movie, oh man, how do you find time to make it into a TV show? And then on Twitter, Jermaine Clement of Flight of the Conchords fame just interjects himself and he says, "You tell Jermaine to do it." and indeed, the first episode is directed and written by Jermaine Clement. And it's very, very funny. It's a different set of vampires. It's a different set of arcs that are coming up. But they do introduce. This is a minor spoiler that they give you in the first 2 minutes. There is in the movie there is sort of a Lestat vampire, a Nosferatu vampire, and other types of vampires. But in this one of the housemates is an energy vampire, which is a legit vampire. But what he does is corner you with stories until you just have nothing left in you, and then he moves on. It's great. It's amazing.
Okay, that's hilarious because my wife produced a show called Vampire Secrets for the History Channel way back in the day, like the mid 2000s, and they interviewed a psychic vampire, is what this person called themselves, and it was pretty much what you're talking about, right? Like somebody who just leeches the energy out of someone. I don't think this person would have described it as by telling them stories they couldn't get away from, but pretty much. I mean, that was pretty much the concept behind it.
Yeah, highly recommended. In fact, Tom, if we're looking for an ongoing thing, we can maybe play catch up on that. They breeze by so fast.
Excellent. Bryce, what should we be on the lookout for?
Hey, this weekend, everyone was really, getting caught up with Avengers and Game of Thrones, but I managed to find a little bit of time to watch a new Netflix show called I Think You Should Leave with Tim Robinson. It's only 6 15-minute episodes. It's a sketch comedy show. And man, the energy on this show is really wild. Tim Robinson has this very big angry energy, and so that's where a lot of the comedy sort of goes, right? It's someone being embarrassed and then doubling down and then overly leaning into the doubling down. And not only is it super quick to watch, I mean, with them only being 15 or so minutes, they go by really fast, but there are a lot of really just good concepts for sketches. There's the office worker who doesn't know what a whoopee cushion is, and so they try to prank him with one, and he's just like, he doesn't get it at all. He's like, why would I fart? What's the joke? Why would I fart? There's a man who tries to pull on a push door, and the other guy in this cafe goes, oh, that's a push. You tried to pull on a push door, and he goes, no, this was a pull door yesterday. You just watch this agonizing, like, ripping the door off of its hinges to pull it. There's the other great one is there's a driver who is behind is behind the main character, and the main character has a bumper sticker on his car that says "honk if you're horny." And he starts stalking the man honking his horn.
Just honking constantly.
It's a lot of like big crazy premises.
I've always thought that on Saturday Night Live, some of the very best sketches were the worst ideas on paper. Like when you heard them, they sounded like one note nothings. They ended up being amazing.
Yeah, and there's also a lot of guest comedy talent on here. Kate Berlant, who I believe is on Saturday Night Live, is on this. Tim Heidecker's on here. Stephen Yoon is in a sketch. It's really funny, and it's kind of like I said, it's kind of a big and sort of angry energy. But if you like that, then I think it's a recommendation. So there are 6 episodes of I Think You Should Leave with Tim Robinson, streaming now on Netflix.
Excellent. All right, folks. If you want to send us something to consider for On the Lookout, email us cordkillers@gmail.com.
Do it.
Meanwhile, Brian has this important message.
Yeah, you guys should check out what we're up to over at Scam Nation. That's youtube.com/Scam School is the channel name.
Scamnation.com.
Or scamnation.com. Yeah. It's, right now we're trying to have our cake and eat it too. But we had Dr. James Grime from Number File. You remember he was right here on Cordkillers. The episode we did a couple weeks ago, the Razzle Dazzle scam, in 1 week, it's gotten almost 250,000 views. A lot of people like it. It's fun to have the opportunity to mix up the format on the channel and to delve into more and more topics.
Go check it out, folks, at scamnation.com, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's like
move
damnation,
on
only with scams.
To the front lines.
Front lines!
The Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences has voted not to change its eligibility rules for feature-length films. Sorry, Mr. Spielberg. Any movie that has at least a 7-day theater run with at least 3 showings per day will remain eligible for an Academy Award. Of course, Mr. Spielberg had led the movement to increase that requirement in order to disqualify Netflix movies which don't get the usual 90-day theater exclusive run. However, one change that was approved was renaming the foreign film category to international.
Yeah, man, congratulations. You finally caught up with CNN 40 years ago when they banned the F word. It was a news story that they're not allowed to say anything was foreign. Also, Spielberg, not the best poster child for this. Somebody who most certainly I will never encounter standing in line for popcorn as he shuffles around looking for his seat like every other schlub. You don't get to sit there on Moral Mountain telling everybody else how they should enjoy their stuff and what's a real movie and what isn't.
He's mad because Netflix doesn't send him screeners.
Is that what it is?
No, I don't know.
During an earnings call, Comcast CEO Brian Roberts said it's very much in everybody's interest to maintain the Hulu relationship. He added that Hulu is really valuable, and we're glad we own a really large piece of it. Apparently, they want to find out just how valuable, since CNBC reports Comcast is in talks with Disney over whether to sell its 1/3 stake in Hulu.
I mean, these two stories showed up one right after the other. Brian Roberts, like, love Hulu. What really valuable. So glad we own it. How much you want for it?
Yep. I mean, that's kind of how it should go. But also, I mean, there's part of me that, I mean, they know that they could get Disney to pay top dollar because Disney owning 100% of Hulu solves a very big problem of how to divvy up the adult programming, the family programming, the kid programming.
Although, does it though? I mean, does it change anything from Disney owning 67% of Hulu when they're where they call all the shots?
They're going to continue. they'll make all the same decisions either way, but all things being equal, we know that Disney has a bit of cash. Don't know if you noticed the primary target. Number two, we know that that if they're going to bet on it, they'd probably prefer to bet on it 100% rather than 67%.
Is that going to lead?
I'm sure they would rather not write a check to Comcast and keep all the earnings for them. Sure, yeah, but I think that's the only thing that Disney would find it valuable. Otherwise, I mean, I don't think they'll overpay to get a silent partner out. You know what I'm saying?
No, I agree, but again, they're just in an extraordinary cash position, and there's nobody else that's going to be chomping at the bit to get that slice of Hulu.
Oh, sure. No, it's entirely what AT&T did, where they're like, you know what, we're out here. We'll just sell you back our shares because our 10% wasn't really going to bring in stuff, and we need that cash to pay debts. Comcast doesn't need that cash to pay debts, so I wonder if Disney would be like, I don't know, man, you're just trying to milk our cash pile, and that's not how you get a big cash pile. So we'll see. AT&T lost subscribers in all its services except wireless last quarter. TV subscribers fell 544,000. That's for DirecTV. DirecTV Now subscribers fell 83,000. That's for the digital service. Warner Media operating income rose 11.6%. That helped bolster the total revenue for the company. And on the AT&T earnings call, CEO and Chairman Randall Stevenson said the exclusivity of NFL Sunday Ticket should remain as we go forward on DirecTV, despite the fact that the NFL's commissioner has recently said he would like to expand Sunday Ticket beyond just DirecTV. That would be another earnings hit if DirecTV didn't have that to sell to people. Their TV subscribers would probably erode even faster, I think.
Yeah, so I guess I don't know if there was no mention about landline internet, because I was thinking about, as I was reading this, what do I like that AT&T does well, and I certainly the wireless, it makes sense that they would expand and continue to grow. It makes sense that DirecTV would get smaller, but landline, like they do fast internet.
Sure.
Yeah. Cinemia ended U.S. operations ahead of Avengers Weekend. The shutdown comes from a competition from theater chains as well as legal action over pricing. Yes, I said Cinemia, not MoviePass, which continues on. It's unclear what will happen to its service in Australia, Canada, Turkey, and the UK.
Yeah. I mean, I think I was one of the people who thought, MoviePass is going under, but I bet Cinemia probably has a chance of making a go at this. They're being more sensible. Turns out being sensible bit them in the butt.
Yeah. Amos, have you used any of those services?
I haven't, but I've got a friend using at least one friend using each of the services that I know of, and none of them are necessarily happy with it. Availability of tickets and how often they want to see, it's at this theater, it's not at that theater. And we have local theaters here that don't play by anybody's rules. They just do whatever they want. I would love to have a pass service that actually works, but for now, I'm staying completely out of this game. And I wonder if Cinemia ending U.S. operations is more about Cinemia or MoviePass just not willing to give up, because that seems to be their only.
Well, my read on this is MoviePass's parent company, Helios and Matheson, has more money to sink into it. And Cinemia is basically saying the legal action that people are taking against us over pricing is pretty much making it so we can't do this. And they just don't have as much of a cash pile to work with. Airbnb is considering building its own video studio to produce short films, documentaries, and other shows about travel. Airbnb has reportedly worked on a TV show called Home for Apple's TV Plus service and helped produce a documentary called Gay Chorus Deep South, which focused on a tour of the southeastern U.S. So it's not like they're unfamiliar with lending their name to television production, but it sounds like this could be an interesting new venue for original content in the future, is companies who want to just create like the House magazine version except for a television show.
This, I think, is brilliant and exactly the right thing for them to do, because what they get to do is think about everybody who does Airbnb and then you, along with the standard agreement, now you have a little clause that says, also, by the way, we host some TV shows. Maybe would like to consider, and part of the agreement is that we're going to look at your place and consider adding you to our essentially competitor to Home and Gardens Television. And
yeah, exactly. Like especially if your place has a particularly amazing garden, like you say, or some kind of architectural feature or interior design, et cetera, et cetera.
And think about this. Cool. Also, like imagine HGTV only. Also, you can stay there. Just click on the website, book your time there. And so it is a synergistic win-win-win, I think.
Earlier today on DTNS, it was mentioned that Marriott is getting into the Airbnb style business. And therefore, for Airbnb to go into the self-promotion advertising thing with this and have videos like, oh, I want to go to Austin, and then it's got an entire show on some of the lovely places you can stay in Austin, that's something that can keep them ahead of Marriott in this game and help their market share. And also, I'm on Airbnb site and now I've got this place right here. Well, it was actually shown in this video, and here's some other places that were shown of the similar style in these other cities. This is unlimited potential on this. If it's marketed right and if it's produced very well, it can be really something that keeps people in the Airbnb system as opposed to going to the Marriott system, or other, Venmo or whatever it is. The other little
the VRBO. Yeah, VRBO.
Yeah. This
you can
is really
pay for VRBO with Venmo, I think.
Yes. Also, I think they bought VRBO at some point. I think Airbnb owns everything.
They own luxury rentals, which is like VRBO. I don't know if they own VRBO or not, though.
But they might be partnered. It can really add to that experience and keep Marriott out of their food bowl.
Phil Lord and Chris Miller have signed a 5-year deal with Sony Pictures Television to develop live action and animated comedy and drama series, including shows set in the Spider-Verse. I am okay with that.
Yeah, and apparently Lord and Miller were like, sure, we'll do other shows. We get to do Spider-Verse, right? Spider-Verse? You got Spider-Verse? Great. We'll sign with you then. Absolutely. Because they did have a deal with Fox. But as we all know, they didn't get along so well with the Disney employees at Lucasfilm.
Oh, that's right.
There. So I'm guessing they were willing to jump over to Sony for that reason. All right, let's get to some dispatches from the front. Blair thinks that they have found a cool app for cord cutters who watch from their laptop or computer. Blair says, if nothing else, it allows one-click start of Netflix and stops Netflix from auto-playing trailers. It's kind of like a browser that plays Netflix but can do picture-in-picture and skip the trailers and such. It is an app, though, and it's $5, so not free. If you want to check it out, go to clickerfornetflix.com. This is Blair's recommendation. We haven't tried it. We don't know anything about the people behind it, but I looked at the website, and it doesn't seem to be just clickbait. So go check it out.
It also does stuff that takes advantage of the little miniature iPad bar at the bottom on there. Matt writes in saying when he signed up for Netflix, it was because it was a great place to get movies on DVD. Then it was the place to stream movies. And then they came out with their originals. Now they're about to lose all the Disney-owned movies. And if you look at their lineup, only recent movies available on Netflix are their originals and Disney-owned movies. Soon you'll be able to watch Netflix originals and some older movies. And Hotel Transylvania 3, for that privilege, they just raised our rates. So Netflix is basically for originals, and the Borg becomes more powerful. Yeah, I'm okay with that because Netflix kind of makes great originals. So it's hard for me to be super upset about.
Also, wouldn't the Borg be Viacom or CBS since they own the Star Trek franchises?
No. He spelled it B-A-U-R-G.
The ancient Italian banking family.
That's right.
The Borgias. And then we got a really interesting suggestion from Joe. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but basically was saying, gosh, I wanted to talk to you guys about Avengers Endgame so much, and I know you'll talk about it a spoiler in time. He was like, what if you guys did a situation where people could pay to be on spoiler in time with you to talk about Avengers Endgame?
I don't think we could do it for every movie, and although I'd be happy to do it with Endgame, but there are... What if we did a special thing where there was a special tier of patrons at patreon.com/cordkillers, and maybe we had only 10, 15 slots, and then 4 times a year we pick a movie, and we're like, we're going to get together in a hangout for 2 hours, and we're all going to geek out about it, and it's going to be a roundtable show. Why
did you have to make it 2 hours? I was so into this idea.
Oh, sorry, an hour. It'll be an hour, whatever it is. Some
You're
units
busier than I am. How are you going to do this for 2? Anyway, I'm sorry.
but basically make it sort of like we do on Night Attack with the Horse Boys. Make it just there's only so many slots, and we'll all get together. That sounds fun, to be honest. Yeah,
it really does. I love the concept of thank you for suggesting this, Joe. We may not get our act together to do this for Endgame, but we'll talk about it in After Talk some more, I think. But this is a really cool idea.
Yeah.
Amos, thank you so much for joining us today. We know that you have a lot of cool stuff going on, including a podcast about Game of Thrones. Tell us about where people can find you and more of what you do.
So you can find me on Twitter at Ethan Kane. I talk about all sorts of things there. If you're into Game of Thrones, I suggest you pick up Let's Talk About Thrones, which is coming to an end with the show. Lots of great people on there. And of course, if you really want to know what's awesome in the universe, go to infinitegain.co and see all the great things that I'm doing over there with Jenny and Rich Truffalino.
Go check it out, ladies and gentlemen. Our website is cordkillers.com. Our email address is cordkillers@gmail.com. We're live on twitch.tv/nightattack, also on diamondclub.tv, Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. We'll see you again next time.
Hey guys, Brian and Tom here, and it's just the same old message at the end of the credits, just like always.
That's right, Brian. Nothing new here except your name showing up.
Oh my gosh,
because
I've got a
name. You
name.
just supported us on Patreon.
Yeah, all those $5 donors. Look at that. That's your name in pixels. We're gonna make you famous, kid. Put your name in pixels on the internet.
Names in there. But some of you are new. Some of you aren't there. It's sad. What can they do, Brian?
I mean, they could go to patreon.com/cordkillers and pledge $5 an episode and be one of these amazing people, like this one.
Amazing.
Oh, look at that name right there.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.